Now, do you sometimes think that our soul winning in a non-employment or non-church employment is low? Maybe because you want to see the results by the number of baptisms. Okay. Now, I posted this kind of question in my page here, Pastor Raleigh. Okay. Because I want to show this and explain to people that there is something we need to understand. You might be wrong into such kind of understanding if you understand the context here in Thailand, where majority of the people are non-Christians. Okay, you might be wrong for such understanding because our work here in the land of smile or in other foreign country like this kind, where the majority of the people are not Christian, is like that of Paul. I mean, our work is like that of Paul. Who was Paul? He was a tent maker. He was making tents in Acts 18:1 to 3, and he was selling, you know, he was a businessman. At the same time, he was preaching on his free time, and he was making and selling tents to support his ministry. It's a self-supporting ministry. It means he was using his occupation as a platform to do mission. At the same time, he was a minister, a pastor. And then he said in First Corinthians 3, verses 6 to 8, now translated by the New Living Translation, verse 6, he said, I planted the seed in your hearts, and Apollos watered it, but it was God who made it grow. Okay? It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. Okay? The one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their own hard work. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say, if we're going to apply it today, is that now I have a, a degree in theology. Okay? And it means by profession, I am a minister, a pastor. That is why I was salaried and employed by Thailand Adventist Mission from 2014 to 2020. That was like 6 years. But then I prayed to God in around 2019 from July to October. Like there was this sense in my heart, like God was impressing me that He was calling me to tent making again, and that means like not salaried by the mission through tithes and offerings, but using non non-tithe, I should say non-church employment, not salaried by tithes and offerings to the mission. And that was for 1 quarter of praying. And a year after that, okay, employment with Talent Harvest Mission was ended. Okay. And I understood a year after that, oh, I prayed. Now, what I'm saying here, not about me, it's about the work in this country. You might be thinking, like, oh, it's very slow, right? Some people think, why there is not much number of baptism? The situation is different. And Paul had the same question before when he was compared with Apollos. Like, oh, what was happening? There was a schism between Paul's group and Apollos' group because there were, like, believe there were four groups in there. Two would be like two groups were Paul's, and the other one were favoring Apollos. Okay, that's why Apollos went away, and Paul settled the problem. Now, who was Apollos actually? Was a Jew who was taught, who was a very, very knowledgeable Jew who was taught by Priscilla and Aquila. And who were Priscilla and Aquila? They were tent makers like Paul. When they saw Apollos was very powerful and knowledgeable in the scripture, they called Apollos and taught them more about what Paul was talking about. And so, and there they work hand in hand. Sometimes in there, it created some problems, some issues. Okay, that is why Paul said, I planted a seed in your hearts. It means like Paul's job was on the entering wedge of the gospel. Like he was like planting, you know, planting stage. While Apollos was the one watering. It's just like some missionaries are in the entering wedge. What it means, like in the beginning stage, like planting seeds, okay, not in the harvesting side. For example, you can do either distributing literature, it's a literature ministry, or teaching in the classroom, or doing mission as doing business as mission, planting seeds, or probably like you can also do some posting post online, maybe singing ministry. There are lots of ways, or maybe medical ministry, just planting seeds. But then somebody like the pastors, the trained pastors who will give Bible study, or the Bible workers, and then it was God who made it grow. Now, Paul was emphasizing in verse 7, it is not important who does the planting, okay, whether you are in the planting work, or who does the watering, or you're the watering, or maybe you are the one like harvesting. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. Okay? Now it is not like, oh, our work is better. Your work is not intentional. Our work is more intentional. No, it's not like that. Okay? Disciple making is a team effort. Well, sometimes it's an individual. There is such individual work, but most of the time it's a team effort. Okay? So we do teamwork. That is biblical. From Old Testament to New Testament, there is always teamwork. That is the one who plants, if you are the one planting the seed, and the one who waters, they work together. It means the members, the church members who do not do full time like gospel ministry, like the gospel ministers, because they're in the daily occupation. There should not be a competition between the two, or comparison between the two, or like blaming each one, like, oh, you are not actually doing intentional work. No, 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 you don't know what is going on behind the scene. Okay, both will be rewarded for their own hard work. That is, if both members and leaders are really doing their job well. Okay, may not be exactly the same hours, may not be the same magnitude or the same intensity of effort, may not be the same result as by the numbers as you see. Now, what is important is you are doing it intentionally, and God sees what you're doing. All right? So, brothers and sisters, those members, those missionaries who don't see results by the numbers of baptism, you don't worry. The important thing is we are doing well. I mean, we are doing faithfully based on our occupation and making it as a platform, whether it is a planting of seed or already watering the seed, but it is God who will grow, or maybe on the stage of harvesting, just in human terms, maybe is right baptism, not exactly like that. In the eyes of God, harvesting is when it comes to the clouds of heaven and harvest all of us and take us to his kingdom. You know what I mean? Okay, now I want you to see what Paul was doing as a tent maker, because in this context of the world, we need tent makers nowadays to go to those 23 countries. I should say I belong to the 70 Adventist Church. There have been like there has been like 212 countries out of 235 countries reached by the 70 Adventist Church, and there are like 23 countries left. So let's do God's work, okay, in this way. Tent making. What is tent making here? I posted a link of the Adventist Mission, Tent Making Without Limits. And if you click that, it goes to this one. By the way, this is Apollos, if you know him. All right, this is Apollos. And so this is the way it is. Okay, if you go to the website, right, about Adventist Mission, you'll find out that the Adventist Mission is very good in, I should say, promoting tent making. And what is tent making? Mission without limits. This is my passion. That's why I prayed so to God so hard for this one. Uh, let me say, let me read this one. Okay, tent making. This is my passion, and why I will explain to you later. Okay, let's go in detail about this. All right, what was said about tent making with the Adventist mission of the General Conference. Foremost, tent making is a way for every disciple of Jesus to be involved in the Great Commission. All right? Every disciple of Jesus should be a tent maker. What do you think of when you see the word tent making? Okay? Does it conjure up images of canvas, sturdy thread, large needles? In the world mission, the term tent making has an association with these images, and in a moment, I'll show you why. The author is saying here. But foremost, tent making is a way for every disciple of Jesus to be involved in the Great Commission. All right, here. As the world becomes more religiously polarized, many nations have closed their borders to church-based missionaries, all right? And mission agencies call these nations restricted access countries. You know, these countries like, okay, I don't like to mention, I might be in trouble, okay? You're restricted for some reasons, like, okay, maybe Pakistan, okay? Other like Muslim countries. A term that applies to places where it's politically or religiously challenging to share the gospel or worship openly. All right. Now, what to do with that one? Using your profession to be a light. How is it done? Simply put, tent makers are devoted believers who use their profession to work in a restricted access part of the world for the purpose of sharing God's love in both word and deed. Okay? So, what does tent making have to do with it? All right? Now, Paul used his craft to support his passion for mission. In Corinth, he stayed with Aquila and Priscilla and made tents because they were tent makers. Now, you can read it in Acts 18 1 to 3, as I read already, as I said, all right? Now, this work became his ticket to planting churches all over Asia. Paul spent years traveling among the major cities in Asia Minor and Europe, where he shared the message of Christ and planted churches. In other words, it's not just a few months, 1 week, or a few months, but years. Tent making takes longer time. Okay? Now you need to understand that. It means that the result will take longer time. Now, Adventist mission is using the same method or approach, I would say approach, to reach people for Christ who might otherwise never hear the gospel. Why I use method? Because we use Christ's method. That's why I call this an approach, whatever the author was saying approach. Now, with tent making, there is no limit to mission. All right? No place where God cannot be seen or heard. Okay? Now, tent makers work at legitimate jobs and support themselves entirely by their work, just as Paul did in Corinth. Look, look, look. Was Job an employee? I don't think so. Job was not. Paul was not an employee. Paul was a business owner. Okay, together with Priscilla and Aquila. It means employment is not the only way to do tent making. But the General Conference is using job because, well, maybe they don't know much about it, I should say, not a criticism. But the author probably of this article doesn't know that there are lots of ways we can do tent makers, and the best tent makers are not employment, but actually doing business or investments. Okay? But in the process, they make friends and meet people's needs. Yeah. They find ways of helping others understand important questions such as, who is God? Did Jesus die for me? Will Jesus come again? They may even start a worship group in their home. That is what we are doing right now in our context here in Visit, Ang Thong, Thailand. From everywhere to everywhere. Today, there is a need for tent making missionaries coming from every nation and going to every nation. All right? Now, there is a need for Africans, Asians, South Americans, Europeans, North Americans. There's a need for people who speak English and Spanish, Arabic, Urdu, Mandarin, Bahasa. Now, we're using English as a means that we can do tent making. Who can be a tent maker? Now, this is exciting. Anyone can be a tent maker, okay, as long as you're not salaried by tithes and offerings. But it takes a high level of commitment to leave your home, career, extended family in order to live and work in a restricted access country. All right? Okay? Look, I will point out later that, tent making, doing employment is not the best one because there's a lot of problems. Look, I will show you later on. I know teachers, carpenters, engineers, doctors, nurses, housekeepers, and accountants who have chosen to be Christ ambassadors where traditional missionaries cannot go. Now, this one is our employees. Okay? Most tent makers live and work in large urban areas of the world that are centers of commerce, industry, communication, and travel. Now, these are employees. Today, as the church seeks to be faithful to its calling to prepare all nations for the second coming of Christ, there's an urgent need for thousands of tent makers, men and women who are willing to use their profession in another part of the world for the purpose of sharing Christ. Okay? If you think God may be calling you to be a tent maker, please visit what is this? Total employment. All right? Okay, I should use that one in another. Here, this is total employment. All right, total employment. This one, being an employee in another country. Okay, use your career. But actually, this is not the best way, total employment, because tent maker is not just about total employment. And in fact, this will give you a headache because of some problems being an employee. All right. Now, well, I am an employee here in the land of Smile, but in about 5 years from now, my group and I call C7. All right, let me tell you here. Okay, here we have lots of stories right here. You can add that story later on, but what I'm saying here, let me expand that idea. Let me expand that idea. My group and I are right now beginning as employees because we need visa right now in the land of Smile to do tent making. But employment is not the best way. Okay, employment is not the best way to do tent making. Let me show you why. Let me Google again that there are lots of missionaries, different kinds of missionaries, and I will show you that. Okay, there are missionaries who can better do tent making with less stress. Okay, and right here, I'm showing this to you right now. This should be the case right now. I'll give you here on screen. There are tent makers this way who can do even better. I'll show you again my screen. Okay, make this big. Here, for reasons that I should say, Adventist mission of the journey may not be aware of this. Okay, where is it? Here. Screen. Here that tent making in employment may not be the best, I should say the best kind of tent making for reasons that here I'll do. Okay, this is the reason why. Because employment or self-employment will give you headache, lots of stress, no security, no time freedom. Most likely you have large debts, you have insufficient funds, and lots of stress. Why is that? Well, because the kind of income is active income. When we say active income, it's just like this, like this person in the picture, like a rat race, keep on running, you know, 5 or 6 days a week from morning till afternoon, like 9 to 5 p.m. or 8 to 4 p.m. And then you don't have enough time. You're controlled by your boss. Okay, that is not the best. That's why there's no time. And well, you see, I've been an employee for a long time, more than 20 years, and uh, it's just higher and fire, especially in a foreign country. And it is a headache, especially if your visa is dependent on employment. The same with self-employment. Why? This too, actually, self-employment or small business, if you own a job, like you don't have in the self-employment, you don't have 500 employees. You're the boss, you're also the employee of your own small business. If you're a missionary in the ES or employee or self-employed, it's the hardest kind of missionary. You have lots of problems in there, especially when you get sick and the kind of income that you have is active income. That is, you're trading your time, for money. And if you get sick, there's no more income coming. It's a headache. And if your boss fires you, it's another headache. And because of those other problems in it, related to it, it's really a headache, and your faith is really tried so much. But if you're in the right side, B means a business owner like Paul. Paul was the one renting his place in Rome for 2 years. Can you imagine that? And he used it as a meeting place. If you're a business owner like Paul, because a real tent maker originally like Paul is a business owner, now especially if it is big, like defined by Forbes.com, and also I should say affirmed by Robert Kiyosaki, having at least 500 employees. It's a big business. Now you have freedom of time, you have passive income, you have stability, you have spare time, you have freedom of time, no debts because money is working for you. Not only that, if you're an investor also, having more money, you have freedom, financial freedom and time freedom. If you're a missionary in the right side, okay, you have financial freedom, not on the left side, because you have passive income already. That is a lot better as a missionary. That is why Paul was able to move around and do even more. Okay, I'm not saying that Paul is the same level as what is called today as financially independent. I don't know in his time, but it was so clear that he was working with a team like Priscilla and Aquila. Well, I cannot overemphasize that. What I'm saying is this: what is being shown by Adventist Mission as a total employment tent making may be good if that is the only thing you know. There, you can also do here, but if you're a family like mine is a family of six, you will really have more headaches. But there are other ways of doing tent making, not just in the employment side. But I'm saying do tent making on the other side, like this here, on the BI quadrant. All right, how to do that? We have lots of ways of doing it. Okay, my group called C7 is in the beginning stage. We are transitioning slowly from ES to BI, because we believe this here has a lot of leverage. When we reach the level later on, when we have enough funding and when we have enough financial freedom and time freedom, you will see how leveraging it is. I do not have doubt about that. It's because we have principles following scriptures in doing it. Now, if you want to know more about how we do that, all right, how we do that, okay, may I encourage you to click the link below right there. There's a link right there. How to do, how to become a tent maker missionary, that is self-supporting missionary, which is more sustainable in about 5 to 10 years from now. You following biblical principle, we will show you. I have a group called C7 every Thursday. We will meet on every Thursday and we will show you the plan how to do that. Okay, well, I should say, going back to the text, you should not worry about whether in your tent making I should say, job or mission work, you are, maybe like it's a bit slow because tent making takes time. So click the link below, right there. If you want to apply biblical principles, how to do tent making, we will show you. I am a tent maker, okay, right now, and this is my passion. Other people may not understand you for such. It doesn't matter. Those who don't have the background of what the Adventist Mission of the General Conference of the SDAs is doing, these people cannot understand local, maybe I should say leaders. It doesn't matter. We just help them, partner with them, rather pray for them. Now the important thing is, let's do tent making. It's one of the best way of doing mission in this country. Okay, click the link below, and I should say review this video. We will show you with a C7. All right, by the way, I'm promoting also this January 7, right here in Thailand, called AIU. We'll be meeting at AIU, that is Asia Pacific International University. Dr. Abner Dizon, like an officer of the SSD, Southern Asia Pacific Division of the SDAs in Silang, Cavite, Philippines. That one is holding about 10 countries. He's the one in charge of AMR department, okay, Adventist and Muslim Relations. And he came to AIU and shared it to the students and faculty. And Dr. Agustin was told by him, by Dr. Dizon, to organize a group of tent makers. So if you're a missionary in this country, all right, not a mercenary, not for money's sake, only, but really making your occupation as a platform for mission. Join us on November 7th, Saturday, okay, at AIU, and we will organize a tent making group. I should say I already have my tent making group called C7, right? If you intend to become a tent making missionary, you can either join us, or if you want, then you can come to the meeting on January 7, 8 at AIU. All right? Well, see you. Don't worry. Let us work together. Okay? Review this video. We will explain more about tent making because we meet every Thursday, and we also on the planning stage every Sunday morning also. We are really doing tent making. In fact, just about 2 hours or 3 hours ago, we were doing care group in this tent making. All right. I'll see you there. Pastor Rolly, contact me for more information about doing tent making in this country, or if you're in another country, join us with the C7. God bless.